Views expressed and the opinions given by their guests do not necessarily reflect those of the Odyssey Files hosts, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Hey, this is Mike Couch from Lost Limbs Foundation. Make sure you check out Mike and Dave on the Odyssey Files because they really need the listeners.
Oh!
Kim, what are you doing?
Well, I'm telling Mike and Dave, it's time to get on the show.
Oh, well, the Odyssey Files starts now.
Good evening, paranormal community. It is 7 o'clock Central Time, which means you are listening and watching to the Odyssey Files. I am your host, Michael O'Neill. With me, as you can see, and soon hear, is my wonderful co-host, Mr. David Soyring. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening, Mike. How are you on this beautiful Monday, almost middle of September? Not quite, a couple days away.
I am doing good.
Good.
It's been one of those Mondays where no matter what I've tried to do or start or go, there's always been like some little roadblock in my way that's like slowing me down or keeping me from doing it. And then just before you're about to lose your shit, it goes away and everything works and you're perfectly happy. And even just before the show, we were having the technical issues with getting our guests for tonight
right.
all situated, and then poof, everything worked. So
it just happened.
It did just happen. So we have an amazing guest for you. I know Dave has been very much looking forward to this interview for a long time, and especially since I told him that it was finally happening.
A couple of years probably that I mentioned her name. It's probably at least I'd say at least 18 months ago or so. I was like, we really need to have Susan on the show,
right?
Kind of thing. And it kind of came to fruition. It took longer than I would have liked, but she's here and I'm excited.
But the thing about it is and I assure everybody who is watching and listening, we did not trick her into doing this, but she volunteered, I guess, kind of through a misunderstanding, to come on the show for the full 2 hours and join us for these not only the interview during the second hour, but for the stories that we have tonight. And so I would like to bring on,
and us. Go ahead. As I say, and us, we're running with it. The mistake was made, but us, we're like, yeah, it's fine. You're already here. You might as well come on for the full 2 hours. We should have done that with Johnny too, when he was on a couple of weeks ago, and he was on for like at 7, and he was like, "What's going on?" Probably should have just been like, "Just stick around for the stories."
Well, that was more, I think, of him just being like high or drunk, but he
was drinking some beers, listening to some heavy metal. That's Johnny, though, right? I mean, so
he is who he is.
Right.
So we would like to bring our guest on for the entire 2 hours. She's sitting backstage patiently awaiting us. She is an actress, a model, and most importantly, a paranormal investigator from shows Ghost Hunters International, Ghost Hunters Academy, and now most, I think, recently, Paranormal Caught on Camera. So I would like for the great Miss Elizabeth Saint to bring on our guest, Miss Susan Slaughter. Hello, Susan.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. So last minute,
Well, thank you for being here.
I'm not as beers and metal tonight. I'm like doing my peppermint tea,
Nothing wrong with peppermint tea.
In the background.
Yeah. Me too.
Tea time for story time, right? That's why I'm sticking around with you guys for these 2 hours. Plus, I also wanted to be in on the tea. That was a bad joke, but
Oh,
I got it.
I did
also,
not.
Fun
my
fact,
fault.
these 2 plants I put here just for the ambiance of this shot.
Wow.
You did a phenomenal job setting the scene.
Thanks. I tried. This is like literally an IKEA bed set that we just bought, and I spray painted it. It's a guest room / studio room in my new place. So we're still furnishing the house.
I like the choice of colorful blankets.
Yeah,
because it adds a lot of like it looks like a Native American blanket.
Yeah, well, I did.
Or a Mexican blanket, one of the two.
And then I have like a Southwestern blanket here.
It's very nice.
So anyways, thanks for having me on, you guys.
Absolutely.
We have a lot to talk about, but I'm like waiting for that moment. I don't want to like get ahead of myself. I know it's like I want to hear what you guys have to say, and then I'm excited to talk about all the other things. Because literally, like the reason why I'm on this, like talking to you guys right now, is because we have a little thing in cahoots that's coming up we need to talk about.
Yes, nice. We do. For those of you who are listening right now, and we'll bring it up later when people come in for the second hour, but Miss Susan Slaughter is now tomorrow officially going to be announced as being part of the Las Vegas Para-Unity Convention.
I'm very excited about this. I really am. So many of my friends are going to be there. And it's funny because I just moved from the West Coast over here to Florida. And then now I'm going back to the West Coast. I feel like the East Coast has a lot of the paranormal conventions and very minimally on the West Coast. So a lot of the times I never get to do conventions. But now look at me going over to the West Side a little bit, to do a convention. It's funny how that all plays out. And I was like, hey, now that I'm going to be on the East Coast, I'm going to be a little bit more accessible. I'm going to do like more paranormal events. And then,
Nope. And now it's back to the West Coast.
I will say this. The East Coast has a lot more locations, I think, that are paranormally active, substantially more than the Midwest has. And probably more than the West Coast has too. And I think like we're stuck in the Midwest and we have like slim pickings. There's some good locations, but nothing like what you get if you head out east.
I have to disagree with you about more places I think it's pretty equal on the West Coast as well as the East Coast. I mean, all around. The reason why, honestly, we don't see like famous locations on the West Coast is because they're not monetarily accessible, because of like usually like for instance like for me, like when I try to produce something or go and investigate something on the West Coast, I'm like, oh, you're from LA, that's gonna be $1 million to investigate, and I'm just like, man, and that's where they get you, is like the big price tag, because ghost hunting is an expensive hobby if you don't have like production like backing that up. So I think what it is that the East Coast locations are a lot more accessible to investigate. So
we Dave mentioned how there's not a lot of pickings here in the Midwest, and he's pretty much correct. And the sad thing about it is that every time that a place like gets abandoned or goes out of business and even has potential of being haunted or active, somebody just comes along, buys it, tears it down, and turns it into senior living apartments.
Yeah.
And so they all, we don't have them because they don't exist anymore.
Or they shutter the doors. They shutter the doors, and then they just don't give anybody access. They're just like, no. You got to remember, like the Midwest has that real, like, I don't know if it's like the whole Midwest. I don't want to speak for the whole Midwest, but there's this theme here of like, the right and wrong thing to do. And like Faux Pas restaurant is notoriously haunted, and it closed a couple of years ago. And like, so you would think now that this place is closed, like it would be a fantastic location to get into. Like there is a lady there that has been seen hundreds of times by hundreds of different people. And everybody has witnessed her, and she gracefully walks through the dining rooms, and they think it's one of the original owners. And like and I don't know if it's residual or if it's intelligent. Like nobody ever talks about it. And if something gets posted, it seems like it gets taken down, like somebody's trying to hide what is really happening there. But now that it's been closed, you would think like, okay, well, charge me a couple $100 and let me come in with a couple of people and just come in and experience it for myself. But that isn't the case. That just doesn't happen like that around here.
Yeah. So. It's because it's become such a popular pastime. Like the average person who wants to be a ghost hunter for the night can buy into a lot of places,
Right.
And so these places become, I mean, it could become a cash cow, to be honest, like, because now they just, people are like, whoa, I could charge this person. I don't even have to make this place cute. Like, you could sleep
Nope.
on the floor and now you're going to be paying more than a 5-star hotel just to spend the night here.
Yep.
And it's crazy. But some people, I think, are trying to preserve like the spiritual energy. And I kind of admire that, and sometimes I sit on the fence in my career, especially with the events that I do, that maybe am I like, I'm on like the cusp of like, am I kind of like being that bad person that like puts out, exploits a location, and we have to be careful in that, I try a lot to educate people on the location and like maybe usually, I mean, because now what's bigger than even television are these YouTube ghost hunters, and there's no tact in how they investigate anymore. And so people, especially the new generations, are leaning on YouTube more than they would on like television, because everything's now on a computer or a phone, And so the younger generations of paranormal investigators are going out there totally misinformed, with poor tact and like kind of like shitting all over the whole genre of the paranormal, community. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense, or if I'm just an old lady like, get off my lawn.
Oh no.
No, we talk about it all the time. We talk about that shit all the time. I'm a lot older than you, and I've been doing it. I like I say, when I first started having my paranormal experiences, I was at the library opening up the card catalog, trying to find books on things that I could educate myself as to what the hell was happening in my house. Like when I graduated high school, computers had just come out. So that'd give you a little bit of an idea of my age.
He's old.
You have like the 8-bit, like he was playing like Oregon's Trail on that big old brick.
I was.
Hey,
with a dial-up modem.
I'm sorry, but Oregon Trail was back then and still is today one of the greatest games ever created. I'm sorry, hands down. But I'm with you on that one, because I mean, Dave can attest to this, and my team loves doing it. They know if they ever want to get my blood pressure to rise, just start mentioning people on YouTube going out and trespassing and just being complete douchebags to the spirits of the places that they go. Dave has a lot of fun with it too, especially with these stories.
That being said, there's some good ones out there. I'm not going to lie.
There are.
That actually raise the bar on the YouTube scene. But I mean, that's like probably a 5 percentile range in the whole paranormal community on YouTube. And it's just, yeah.
And how do you filter that? That's the problem, right? Like, how do you filter out the 90% of the bullshit to get to the 10% that are legitimately taking the field in a positive direction, or maybe has a really good piece of credible evidence that they want to share? That's a really good piece of evidence, visual, audio, whatever the case might be. And people watch it, and right away, if it's, and I hate the direction this is going, but right away, if it's really good piece of evidence, immediately it's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Immediately it's faked because it's too good. It's too good a piece of evidence. It needs to be that blur out of the corner of your eye where you can't distinguish shit. That's the paranormal. Something sliding. I'm just saying, something sliding across the table while you're sitting there asking for it to happen. Regretfully, that's not considered paranormal anymore. That's, everybody watches that and they say it's faked, which is wrong. But it's a byproduct of it's a byproduct of what you just described.
Yeah,
the people that are out there trashing our field.
I know. How did we get on this topic? Shit talking YouTubers.
You brought it up.
For some more tea. Continue.
Well, the thing about it is, and I'm going to bring this up during the second hour, because I definitely want to talk to you about Paranormal Caught on Camera, which is all about analyzing supposed evidence.
Right.
Now you know why I'm salty. Now you know why. Because like at the... Yes, we'll get there. We're not going to talk about it right now because that is loaded, but please do ask me that later.
Oh, yeah, it's coming up. Because if he wasn't going to ask you, it's on my list of questions. So,
yeah. But all right, we promised you stories. We promised everybody some stories. So, and this first one is actually, I think I hope, right up your alley, Susan.
That's
So,
why I picked it.
all right. So here we go. The title of it is Possibly Cursed. And this person wrote in, I think my family was cursed. So here's my story. If any witches have information, please let me know. I still think that there is a high possibility me and my family got cursed. It all started September 1st. Here's some background info. My mother and her very close friend, who happened to be into brujeria.
Brujeria.
Brujeria, which
Yeah, brujeria.
okay, sure, that's exactly what that was.
It's Spanish for bruja. Bruja is Spanish for witch. So brujeria is witchcraft in Espanol.
Well, which I kind of figured. I just don't know how to pronounce it.
You did.
Who is thank you. Who is pretty spiritual. Stop being friends. They got into some sort of beef in a big fight. I don't remember what the exact fight was about, but I remember it was pretty bad and petty. Keep in mind, this friend was also our neighbor. Shortly after they stopped being friends, a piece of meat ended up on our doorstep. Yes, meat, like a big slab of raw steak. For reference, we have stairs, so it was not drug up by an animal. There was no damage to the steak, teeth marks, scratch marks, or any of the tattering. It was perfectly untouched, like it had just been placed there. I don't know if it was stuffed with anything or anything like that, because my grandma had touched it and thrown it away. She wasn't even able to tell us.
Wasn't even
going to tell us, but she told my sister, who then told me and my mom. The neighbor who always wakes up very early in the morning for work, and the steak wasn't at our doorstep the night before. It was like it had just been placed there. Keep in mind, this was like 7, 8 a.m., meaning it had been placed there, which correlates even more. It was related to our witchy neighbor. After the steak, it's like everything came crashing down. Issues with social services involving my half-brother's dad. Issues with him using drugs. We started having issues with evil spirits. I'll get more into that. Car break-ins. Then, no, it's not over. My little brother's dad died from drug use. Everything after the steak completely fell apart. It was like everything changed in a blink, not in a good way. Like everything was doing good, but right after the meat, nothing was going good. Bad things since have still been happening. Still, malicious spirits have been messing with us. Also, we've never had issues with spirits before the meat. And even though we moved households, we still have been dealing with malevolent entities. Please help. Does anyone know of any curses with raw meat? How to get rid of it, if so? My mom is a heavy believer in God, and she thinks God will remove the curse. But I'm telling you, after the meat, we got so screwed. Forgot to say, after the neighbor probably cursed us, she got evicted and lost her job. Pretty sure she lost her kids too. Coincidence, maybe? No idea. Thanks for listening to this crazy story. Please give us any info if you have any. I don't know if I'm crazy. So, Susan, take it away.
Okay, I gotta say something there. Okay, I don't think the meat itself is the curse. I think the meat attracts the entity. It was kind of like an offering to bring, like, let's say if you, I mean, to bring that entity to that doorstep. Because once it was like, oh, you know, like when you, because a lot of the times, especially in brujeria, you're not working with like ghosts of people. You're working with like elemental energy, and they can be very animal-like, right? And so when you give them offerings, let's say you kind of like conjure up that energy, and then you give them offerings on like the doorstep of like the person you want that energy to attach to. It's kind of like feeding, you know, that alligator you're not supposed to feed, or that wolf that gets closer and closer and closer because you've got that literal stake there. You know what I mean? Eventually it starts going there and wanting things from that house. So I think that's what the purpose of that slab of meat was like the attractor to that type of energy, right? And I think the reason why that bruja got evicted was because on the flip side, his mother is very religious, believes in God, and maybe her spiritual workings, you know, flipped the coin on the head, and that's why she got evicted. And so you can have a bit of a spiritual warfare, you know, you don't have to be in the same spiritual lane to manifest things, you know. So maybe that's what happens, you know. And I truly believe as a practicing witch that if you opt to use your magic for harm and even for good, no matter how you use your magic, you're going to get, you know, that karma brought back to you. It's just the rule of energy. And so I think that if you're practicing something to harm a family, then you're going to get that eventually down the line. You know, it's like an eye for an eye type thing.
So how do you remove something like that? Because I'm on the fence with curses. Like we've talked about curses. We did a show on curses, and I'm like, why is it fair? Like, why in the whole karmic universe is it fair that my great grandfather might have done something in 17, you know, great grandfather might have did something in 1780 that really screwed somebody over, and now this curse has been placed, and we're still, and this is not happening to me, but I'm just using it as an example. Like, we're still cursed in present day. Like, how is that karmic? How is that allowed in the scope of things? I
think the reasons why curses continue to snowball and even generationally is because that energetic work hasn't been, you haven't done the homework, or you haven't stopped that plague or illness, you know. So this goes back to how you remove a curse. I think the first thing you have to notice is, like, in order for a curse to work, there has to be like a psychological seed, you know, where you have to believe it. Like, so seeing that stake, for instance, knowing the fact that your neighbor is a witch and practices, you know, things that you don't understand. When you don't understand something that, you know, oh no, witchcraft moment, I don't know anything about it, it plants the seed of fear. Right. And that fear, just like in the paranormal that we, you know, investigate every day, is one of the biggest attractors of energy, and can shape the energy of like a haunt around you, and even like a curse, you know. So what you need to do, and I tell this to people, is like, first of all, you have to kind of work at removing that seed that was planted in your head. You know, that's why like witchcraft is so like a visual thing, you know, and it's meant to kind of look scary, especially in curses, because it wants, there's that fear tactic. That's that seed that grows. That's the energy that these elementals need to feed on. So there goes the stake, luring it to your door. Now that seed of fear has been planted in his head, which continues the attraction of that type of like negative elemental, you know, to kind of feed on in their arena or their home. So what I think is that you have to do is like really change the vibration within the home and within yourself, so that you're not led by fear, you know, and maybe you lead through your heart, you know. And I recommend a lot of the times things like vibrationally speaking. I mean, call me like witchy juju, but like certain crystals have types of vibrational healings to them, and also like reject negative energy, like black tourmaline. I mean, it's scientifically proven that if you put certain things in like water, like shungite, like crystals, you know, that changes the vibrations, and is also an antibacterial. It just changes like the whole, like it could turn water alkaline and all this stuff, which is like a whole like molecular change in an element, you know. And we like don't tell, you know, and that's what we are, like work with elements, you know, no matter what type of witch you are. And so when you start working with elementals, they respond to things like that, you know. So like I would say, I mean, my little witchcraft thing would be like, take something like copper, you know, fill it with water, shungite, and a giant thing of black tourmaline, and that creates like a big an orgone type energy that literally changes the ionosphere within your home, and also, you know, changes the vibration of the water. Try drinking that water too, you know, so it like sits within your body, and you become the orgone, you know, and then those energies can't really attach to you. And then I would say meditation is my number one thing, you know. Like I definitely use the inner glow of my chakras to like create a protective shield around me. And when you are vibrating on a certain level, these lower vibrational like elementals can't like mesh with you energetically, so that you just kind of like push away that curse, you know.
So do they just get frustrated and leave then over time? Is this like Is there like a? Can you give us an idea of like time? I mean, is it like a couple of months, or is it a couple of years, or a couple of weeks if you're really going after it aggressively to really raise your vibration?
I mean, to be honest, I don't think it would be that awful. I think like I'll just give it a couple of months if it's a true problem that's really like eating away at an individual, right? Let's say that individual is like, that's the hard thing, is getting out of that mental rut, because you're like, oh man, this curse, maybe I lost my job. Now I'm in a financial rut and now I don't have a home. How can I be spiritual in this space? How can I even buy a freaking tourmaline, because those things are expensive, like dumb shit like that, right? But you get in this headspace of I can't. And then you don't focus on like the inner strength because you feel beaten down. And that's where that's where the cycle of the curse progresses, because people don't take the time to energetically change the environment that they live in and themselves, So, things like that, like he mentioned drug use, and with one of a family members, and that was probably a habit that was started. And then, when you start going downhill, what do you lean on more? Right. You lean on drugs and alcohol, abusing substances. So then again, it just perpetuates the curse to continue. So I think that's the big nipping it. And that's what his mom did. I think she leaned on her faith in a way. She prayed, and praying is a form of meditation. She was really going hard on like, using her faith, then I think that's the reason why things changed. Did you see that, by the way? How that just moved out of nowhere?
Yeah. The leaf bouncing around. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that doing that, or did it?
No, it just started. I don't know if it's an air vent hitting it or what, but it's just that one leaf was kind of bouncing.
I turned the AC off because it's so incredibly. You know what? I do have the fan on. Let me stop psyching myself off. But it's low. It's really low. It's going like this. Whatever. We'll see.
Well, when you first pointed it out, it was completely stationary because I was looking at it.
And it's just that one little leaf.
It's just that one leaf, yeah.
No. I see more moving. I'm just psyching myself out.
It wouldn't be the first time that we had a guest on when something weird happened during our interview.
No, I'm just going to blame it on the fan, but it psyched me out a little bit.
So here is a question that I should not ask, because it's not exactly a yes or no, but you've been talking about, planting the seed in your head that, starts the curse. And we constantly are talking about, when we go into places, how your energy is, what your intent is, everything just seems to be a very mental game. Mm-hmm. So to you, how much of the paranormal field, when it comes to like experiences, especially, and things like curses, do you think is self-actualized?
I think that a lot of paranormal activity is mental projective and energy, like poltergeist activity, for instance. People are like, that's demon stuff. And I'm like, no. That is like collective mental energy, and that, bounces around in a space that like it doesn't understand. And that's why you have these like strange, like lapses in like our three-dimensional space, and so I do believe it's mental energy. I have a friend of mine who worked on this really interesting investigation that he did at, I forgot the name of the location, but he was working, his name's Brandon Albus. You know him probably from like the Ghost Hunters show. And before he was on Ghost Hunters, he was on a team app where I've known Brandon for a very long time. And he was working with this a scientist named Dr. Clore, and they did a study where they went to a location and brought all these people in a location that's not supposed to be like technically haunted, but had the vibe or look, because it's just old looking, and they kind of fed them these. They
made up stories. Yep.
Lies.
Right.
And their fear of the activity and what happened was that they, created phenomena that only happened when those people that were there that were told these stories about it that weren't true, but at any other given time, professionals have been in there and they have found it to be a fairly quiet spot, and that's not really particularly haunted. But then you bring these individuals in that have been fed, you know, this has happened here, this person died here, all this awful atrocity, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden that, you know, they're picking up like, I'm thinking like EVPs and things that are like talking back to them, you know, and that's, you know, that's another reason why we have to be so careful when we go into like active spaces, because with your thoughts, you can transmute like a pure haunt into a whole other narrative, you know, and then all of a sudden that whole, it's, you change the narrative of the truth of the haunt, you know, and it's like, I'm worried about that with certain places, because the more you start going to a place like misconstruing energy as demonic because something moved, you know what I mean? Like, come on now, like that's not, just whatever. But it's like, but then it's like people like it's they demonize a place literally, you know, and then you start getting these negative aspect haunts because people start going there fearing demons and non-human energies, and that fear can take just a regular old residual haunt lady in white type of scenario and turn it into non-human hairy beast in the corner, because that's what people want to see or expect because they were told it was a demon, you know.
Okay, so all right, before you go on and before we move on, twofold. Number one, would you say Bobby Mackey's is a situation where that you're describing right now? And number two, is that actually materializing, or is it all mental in the head of the person who's going there with expectations of the location?
I think so. I've never investigated Bobby Mackey, so I haven't had that feel, you know, like when I would
right.
I
haven't either.
It.
Right.
So,
but you know what I'm talking about. Everybody is the whole demonic, right? Like
whole thing, yeah.
Right. Cut her head off, throw it down the well, sacrifice the baby to the devil, the whole blah blah blah. So,
I mean, who's to say that to him? What if that really did happen? You know,
and maybe it did.
I've
right.
been to places where like straight genocide has happened, and I've had like the nicest, most warm meditations there. I mean, it's really just like, I mean, energy does stick. It's hard, you know, but it's like, I think what's going on there, you go and you bring the story. Yeah, you could change the haunt into something else based off the energy that human beings and we mentally and physically project outwards. Because what people don't realize is that we're like walking beams of energy, and we melt into everything around us. People think things that, you know, are solid, separate. Like you and me, I feel like, I mean, I don't know. I get a little too metaphysical sometimes. I try not to. I try to step back because sometimes people are like, there she goes again. But I see the macro and microcosms of everything around me every day. So maybe I need to lay off my meditation and like live in the like 3-dimensional world, right?
I just want to do 3 quick points. One, I think it's phenomenal that like a complaint that somebody would have against you is, oh, there she goes again, another metaphysical rant. Not a lot of people can do that. Second point about what you were saying about changing the energy of a place and whatnot. Like Dave and I have talked about this a lot about like the Villisca Axe murder house, and like that whole place. I don't even think that there's any actual spirits there. Now it's just like the house. So if you go into a house all big and bad and provoking or whatever, the house is going to kick the shit out of you. But if you go in and you're very respectful and you sit down, you just want to ask questions or play with the ball, nothing happens to you. And it just kind of is turned into a place where it mirrors back your own energy like tenfold.
Well, it could be like certain types of investigators go in. I see a lot of these masculine types go in, you know, kind of puffy chest and like, what's up? You know, like, I mean, and just, you know, that's like kind of threatening or maybe it's just resurrecting these horrible moments or like you know, like certain energetic frequencies, like they're like hitting the chord, you know what I mean, just by being that way. And so it resurrects that memory of that haunt, especially in negative locations where you have like traumatic events like axe murders, happening in those spaces, because I do believe that those things can get recorded within a space and they can lie dormant. And maybe, the average person that comes in all like namaste or whatever, like, doesn't, you're not going to get any activity because you're not like striking that energetic chord, and that's why it became such a thing for people to like go in and antagonize energies to resurrect that negative haunt aspect within a location, because it's kind of waking up like a sleeping beast, by like tugging on that nerve. And so once that nerve gets amplified, then you start getting these negative aspect haunts, and people get a rush out of that, and they don't realize this is the dangerous thing about it. Like, cool, you're getting a rush out of this, but like, I think at the end of the day, I've seen it, and I'm not going to name any names, but people that go and investigate, I've seen it like tear their lives apart and tear relationships apart and led people to do toxic things to each other. I've seen it take lives, and and these are peers in our community, that just, I see like that negative aspect when you go in and start investigating like that. It wears energetically on you, because just like we could go and push that energy out there, it reflects back at us. And then we start becoming this negative people within ourselves. So you find two types of people in the community, investigatively, that you notice they're like kind of dicks or like just really nice, it's kind of, there's like this weird like in the field, because I feel like they get like real like involved in like the negative aspect haunts, and that's all they pursue, and I honestly, like, for instance, I'm going into I investigate negative things all the time, and I have to do cleansings. I do the work afterwards. And I tell you, it takes me at least a week to get back to myself after I go to some of these locations. I don't like to take that energy and keep it in me, because it does drive me dark,
Well, I just want to say that I have a large, sensitive feminine side, so I don't go in and puff my chest or anything. So we're good on that. So, but I just wanted to finish this point, or this comment before we move into story two.
It's gonna be one story tonight. I pick 5 or 6. We get to 4 tonight. I got 6. We're gonna get to 1.
All right, let's move on to the next one. I feel like we helped a little bit with his situation, or his mom did with her spiritual purge using the power of
God.
God.
White light, high vibrational energy, angels.
Yeah,
however you want to describe it.
Calling in on some archangels there, if she believes in that. You know, that's like a vibrational energy and resonance. They're not like Archangel St. Michael is just a man representation of sacred geometry and vibrational energy. And you're calling on that type of, I'm not Christian. I don't identify as Catholic, but I do call on archangels, and I have their physical representations all throughout my house, but I understand what they are energetically, and that's, I think, the good thing about the Christian like spread of the word of like, it was the book of Enoch that spread like the whole word of like archangels.
Yeah. So Dave, just really quick before you start reading, stop clicking your pen.
I'm not clicking a pen. I have it in my hand, but I'm not. This is clicking a pen. I'm not doing that.
Sorry,
I wrote something down.
Whatever.
As I say, I wrote something down a couple minutes ago.
Put the pen down, David.
Put the pen down, Dave.
My ADHD, man. It's hard to do. All right, so we're moving on to story 2, Atlanta Ghosts. So I'm an American Civil War reenactor. Sometimes the events we do are located on or near the actual battlefields. Well, one night I was camped out kind of in the middle of our group, and there had been a band that was camped out behind us playing old music and such. Well, just as I was about to fall asleep, I heard a girl scream, and she said she had just seen a person's head floating outside the tent behind her, which was actually my location. So I was like, well, maybe she's been drinking or something, so I brushed it off. Later that night, I woke up to use the bathroom and went to the porta potty, which I would say was 100 yards from camp and on a hill. First, I just got to say, 100 yards away for a porta potty, that's a horrible location.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like,
who the hell's going to like have to pee or, go number 2 and have to walk 100 yards? You'd be in trouble. Anyway, so you could see across the entire field. Now I say it was a perfect night, 65 degrees, a breeze, and had been cloudy, but the moon was peeking out now. So I strolled back to my tent and opened the tent fly and noticed a soldier standing outside the camp staring in. I thought, wow, you've got to be really devoted to be out that late at night, which wasn't uncommon. Well, the man disappeared, and it kind of freaked me out. I continued watching out into the field, and I could see a white mist look like it was running at the camp, like I'm running from my life pace, kind of running towards the camp. All of a sudden, it would flash out as if nothing was there, but then it would reappear in another area of the field over and over and over again until I ended up falling asleep watching it. The next night, same conditions, absolutely nothing happened, and I haven't seen anything since.
Where was he camping? Did he mention that?
Well, it's titled
he said
Atlantic Ghost.
Atlantic Ghost, so I'm assuming it was one of the battlefields somewhere down in Georgia. Yeah,
Okay.
it didn't give the name of the actual specific battlefield, but I'm assuming it was that this one was on one of the battlefield locations since they're doing a reenactment of it.
I mean, reenactments are powerful things. Again, it's like sparking that memory,
Right.
And he knows more than the average person about like his character, and the role that it played in history. Right. So he's probably constantly like being that memory board for that type of energy. If it were there, he's like kind of fueling it. And I think music has a lot to do with haunts as well, vibrationally. Like I don't know what type of music they were playing, but the certain frequencies will definitely resurrect like energies.
I would guess like Civil War, banjo, wash tub. It was the first thing that comes to my mind, kind of thing. Well, I mean, that's what they were playing back then. It's not like they pulled out the electric guitar and were hauling the, amps around the battlefield. You had a bugle.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
right, and you had like a wash tub, and you had a washboard, maybe, and some spoons. They played the spoons or whatever.
That's if they were playing like good old like knee slapping music on the porch.
Right.
But what if they were playing music that they would play at the beginning of like
of a battle?
Exactly.
Right.
And like what that's the thing is like I have so many questions about why, and especially right. Seeing a mist or like something run like haul ass, like 28 days later zombie style, like
right.
That's an interesting note, that the way that he said it, I could almost kind of see it in my head when he's like just hauling ass, and that's not like if somebody was smoking or vaping or whatever, like doing a little like powwow in their tent, that's a slow smoke, like I try to debunk right. that. But if it's like, and he says like hauling ass, there's a whole movement there too, like physical right. reaction when you see someone hauling ass. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I think it resurrected like a flight response of whatever energy was there. So I mean, some of the most traumatic, like that feeling, have you ever like almost died before? Have you ever had like near death experiences, or like you've done something where you like, why you almost died just now, and you had this like your body grows like hot and you get this gut feeling that like electric shoots through your core, when you like just escape like something was going to kill you.
Right.
And that is a discharge of energy, mm-hmm. of like mental, and that will get that just sensation, and you've survived that gets recorded, like that little trauma response gets recorded in the atmosphere. It's a grounding situation. It's like when lightning hits, like when you see lightning hit, it doesn't just come from the sky, there's the electromagnetic resonance that meets up kind of where the touchdown is. It goes whoop, right from the surface of the planet up into like, and then connects like that. And that's what your body's doing. Like you're grounding, like that energy, that reaction you had just kind of like implanted a little bit of a memory, in that space, and I've seen apparitions of not like straight shadow people, of people that are alive today. I've even got EVPs of other people's voices that I recognize saying something to me, and a conversation unknown to other investigators getting recorded, you know, months down the line on a EV, like as an EVP, you know. So the living can haunt as just as much as the dead, you know. And so, but I think this was I think this was a dead soldier running, but that I got a little bit of a segue there. But just I think that experience that soldier was feeling, that like fight or flight moment, that was like life or death. I mean, he probably didn't survive that moment. That's why we're seeing this type of like apparition happen. And I think that this is a planetary way. Like, notice how haunts happen over like traumas. I think this is like a planetary like recording lesson for the living, you know, like, hey guys, look at what happens when you're an asshole. You create sadness and sorrow and trauma, and then the universe records that for us to like learn about, and we seek it out as paranormal investigators, all those lessons.
But how do we know what's a lesson? You know, just as us as humans, and especially paranormal investigators, how do we know what's a lesson and what isn't?
I think what I mean by the lesson is like when we see like the apparitions of people, usually because something traumatic happened to them. Sometimes in my experience, either they're reliving that worst moment of their life right before the end of it, or you get the residual ghosts or reliving the calm before the storm, you know, like their content place because they don't want to live within that memory of their stress and trauma, you know. And then you could turn like a residual haunt if you keep hounding it. Hey, remember that time you were like hit in the face with an axe, you know? Hey, was that you? You know, like then you turn like this spiritual energy that just was kind of living in its like happy, you know, like fishbowl, and then you're forcing it to like relive this trauma, and then that's when you start getting this like negative activity. And negative activity is just like within like the vibration of how it comes off, you know, like a lot. I think everything is just like a fraction of of a person. Like, I don't think the whole spirit haunts the location. I think it's just like a fractal part of like who we are. You're not going to get the whole person. So that's why I think it feels like a lot of these things feel like recordings, you know. And although we like to think they talk to us, the only people I notice that get reactions like in real, like intelligent reactions on an investigation, are people that don't hound questions about the memories they don't want to remember, you know. I've noticed that they'll chime in. You'll get like intelligent conversations chime in as like an EVP or something. And it's not like usually as a rebuttal to like, yeah, that was me that bled to death on the floor. It's like, yeah, that's in the kitchen, you know, that Coca-Cola can you're talking about. Hey, where do I leave my Coke? Oh, guys, yeah, you see my Coke? And then you have a ghost saying it's in the kitchen, like in a different frequency, you know?
Right.
It's just like, that's an intelligent response, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the demise of her, you know, because they don't want to live that. I noticed that at the Lizzie Borden house, you know, like I do believe the Lizzie Borden house to be very active and haunted, but you start talking about the murders, activity goes away, you know.
I've tried to get. Sorry to interrupt, Dave.
That's all right.
I've tried to start getting my investigators and that are on my team to not ask like, so, you know, how did you die or what year did you? I'm like, why would they want to talk to us about that? Don't ask them about that. Ask them about their favorite food. Tell them you like meatballs, and you know, ask them about their bathroom schedule. You know, whatever. But don't start talking about, you know, like, so what did it feel like to, you know, get shot in the head? Like, why would you ask that question, and why would they answer it?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of investigators out there feel that if they bring up that traumatic stuff, like that's what instigates the activity. You know, if you get them upset, then they're going to be more willing to, I don't know, throw something at you or whatever. But doesn't make it right.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't make it right at all. Trying to, it would be great. And I, I'm going to say this with a grain of salt. It would be great if, like, everybody who went into a situation and was looking for that type of response got a brick upside the head, like legitimately. Like somebody picked up a coffee pot, like the entity was tired of answering that question, picked up a coffee pot and smashed it upside your head.
I mean, that would
Because
be entertaining to
shit-
watch, but then that
Well, I'm just saying.
antagonizes the energy. Then all of a sudden there's a demon in the house, and we don't want to demonize, someone.
Well, I was looking at it more for the point that then the person who asked that question would be like, F that. And that was a lot more than I anticipated was going to happen, and then they would move out of the field. That's where I was going with that,
And then
not
Zach
with the
Baggins
location.
comes and investigates the violent teapot, and then it
But
becomes
he's
like,
not.
all over the
There's not
world,
enough time
and
left
then
in the
here's
world.
this place.
Yeah, I know.
And then that's the problem with that is like, I think that's why they're elusive. It's like you just don't engage. That's how you get rid of trolls online. It's like how ghosts get rid of investigators on location. Just don't engage. I don't want to see any all. Let's make sure this place is not haunted at all for any of these paranormal investigators. And they're throwing like the biggest, dead man party once we all leave with our gear. So I think it's a kind of also. But at the same time, I feel like if you go in there and you asking for energy and you want to like antagonize things, I mean, people get responses. It's like, it's all about and sometimes it depends on the individual too. I mean, have you guys ever investigated together and noticed that there's a difference in like how activity responds to a person depending on the location? Like I've been antagonized in certain locations and I've been like the safe space in other ones, and by the energies there. I find that being a female in general going into a location, if there's any like really dark, like sexual masculine energy in there, like if things like, I mean, we're like, dark stuff happens like that. There's like a fly. That's not a dark orb or anything. I get a lot of that negative masculinity, and just like also women, like let's say they've experienced a trauma in their life and then here's some like big strong man coming in to investigate, you might terrify her,
Right.
because she associates you with violence and trauma, and it's just like sometimes you just can't help it. You come off a certain way, just like you would to any stranger, they judge a book by the cover. That's why you have to make sure when you go into locations energetically, you're in alignment with like your goal, Don't go in there for like selfish reasons, or like, be okay with not having. I go in expecting nothing to happen. And I'll tell you 9 times out of 10, I'm right. But that's the field, you don't get things all the time. YouTube.
Yep. Dave can confirm this, but I would tell anybody who was whether they were my investigators or whether they were people at events that I was hosting, I'm like, come with me if you don't want to experience anything. And I was pretty much right almost every time. And I think some people kind of resented coming with me because they didn't believe me. And then lo and behold,
it was over and they had no experiences, and other people were having experiences, and then they were like, "God damn it! I just paid $250 to be here," and they were all grumpy about it.
I warned you.
Yeah,
thanks for supporting the paranormal community.
Exactly. I go in even keel. I go in like a chameleon, right? I don't take any, and I don't take any expectations with me at any location I go to. I walk in and I'm. The energy in the location dictates what direction I'm going to go.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way for me to put it. That's exactly how I approach a situation. And, I've got a great EVP from Farrar Schoolhouse in Iowa. Best EVP I've ever gotten in 50 years that I've been doing this. And it's a long, intelligent. The interesting thing is, though, it's a British woman. And there should not be a British woman speaking to me from Farrar, Iowa Schoolhouse. Right?
I mean, maybe spiritual attachments, ancestral attachments,
Maybe, but she's intelligently like answering as what I'm talking about. She is right on cue with what I'm talking about, and I'm not talking to her. I'm just openly talking in general to whoever might be listening.
What did she say? Like what in the gist of it?
Basically that she was listening and that her and her friends were going to live again, and that she called them to come out of the corners. And I was talking about the possibility that children had lost their innocence there due to some of the rumors about, there being some sort of inappropriate things that happened with kids and the janitor. And I wasn't going after. Yeah, I was going to say, you can certainly hear it. We can certainly send it to you. And I wasn't going after the janitor per se. I was talking more about the loss of innocence for a child's life is really what I was talking about. And that's where all of my energy was. And it wasn't an attacking type of energy at all. It was a very emotional, sad moment for me, thinking about the fact that a child might have been mistreated. Being a father, it's very difficult for me to walk into a situation where children are involved in a haunt and for me not to put on the dad hat.
Yeah.
It's extremely hard to do. I do my best, but I'm just a human being. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And sometimes I carry that air of authority in as a dad and I want it to stop. And sometimes I walk in there and just try to find, go in even keel and try to find out what's going on. So, but this particular thing with Farrar, it was Mike can send it to you. It was very intelligent and it's a great EVP. I mean, it's crystal clear and I'm the only one in the auditorium. There's nobody else in the auditorium with me. So,
yeah, and there's definitely no
and it's
no
a British
English
accent woman.
Yeah. So, do we want to do one more?
Sure, let's bang out one more.
Okay, so I'm assuming that you gave this story to me on purpose.
Well, I was just going to say, so we could skip to the last one if you want, because that's an interesting.
No.
Okay.
No,
I mean they're all interesting, but they're all going to be long answers. But let's do the cat one then.
All right. So, Susan, just a little bit of a context. I love to make fun of cats, and can't stop myself from doing so. And this is all a cat story, so prepare yourself.
Okay.
And just know that no matter what I say, I'm not actually violent towards cats. All right. It's Not My Cat is what it was titled. My wife and I have a black cat named Shade, and our home is pretty dark even during the day, especially in the hallway. 2 days ago, I was about to leave the bathroom, open the door, and turn the light off. I glanced down and saw my dog standing there looking at me, and I saw movement in front of her on the floor and saw what looked like my cat walking through the dark hallway towards her. There were a few little spots of light, and I saw him in those clearly. I turned to get my phone from the counter and left the bathroom, went to the end of the hall to my bedroom, opened the door, and my cat was laying on my bed next to the wife. My wife and I sleep during the day as we work at night, and yesterday I was headed to bed. My wife was already laying in bed and the bedroom light was off. The room was barely lit up by the sun outside, barely coming in through our black curtains. When I went into the room, my wife asked if Shade was in the bedroom, and I said I didn't know. She called for her and then said, "There he is," and pointed to the hall just outside our open bedroom door. The hall was dark, of course, and I couldn't see his little black ass. So I said, "Where?" She said, "Right there, sitting in the hall just on the other side of the door." I kept looking and straining to see in the dark, but couldn't see anything. Then out of the corner of my eye, I saw him walking in front of our bed. I said, "He's right here." She said, "I see him in the hall." I turned on the phone's flashlight and shined it in the doorway, and nothing was there. So, these guys, if I'm going to say anybody's cursed, it's these people. Because not only do they have a living cat, but they have a ghost cat too. So that's double curse. Is that a thing? Double curse?
A double curse.
A double curse?
It sounds bad.
Good luck, though.
I had a ghost cat. So
I've seen ghost cats.
I had one.
You had one in your house?
Yeah, we lost one of my cats, a black cat, actually. Called him Shadow. Gorgeous. Just a gorgeous cat. And he was an indoor-outdoor cat. And my wife came home one night and she was like, "Oh my God, I need you to go out in the street and take a look down the road." And da da da. And we lived off of we lived in a newer development, and then there was like a country road out at the main entryway. And I went down, and sure enough, he was there, and his head had got run over completely, like because his body was completely intact, but his head was completely flat. So it was like an instantaneous type of death.
At least. That's
right,
good.
Exactly. Right. I mean, if he's going to go
just like that.
Right. It was instant. He saw the headlights probably, and then boom, it was over and whatever. And I thanked God for that he let him go like that and not get his guts run over or something and then be suffering.
Just die slowly.
Right. Right. So anyway, long story short. So for about 2 weeks after I brought his body back home and we buried him in the backyard, for about 2 weeks after that, I saw him probably a half a dozen times. All three of my daughters saw him. My ex-wife saw him. The dogs would react to him. We had 2 golden retrievers. They would follow him around. They used to always follow him around the house, see what the hell he was doing. And they would follow. All of a sudden, they'd get up out of nowhere for no reason and start following something around the house. And you could tell it was this exact same reaction when he was alive, that they would follow him around when he came home. So for a couple of weeks, he was there with us.
The sudden nature of his death, like, probably is the reason why he had like this bit of a residual haunt, because it was just like, didn't even realize, like,
right.
I'm dead.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought too.
You know, like, just it was just, I saw a bright light and now I'm back at home doing my usual thing, you know. And maybe it took a little bit for the energy to kind of realize, wait, this doesn't really make sense. And then eventually energy will dissipate, you know. Oh, yeah. I've seen ghost cats. I've seen ghost dogs. I've heard horses, like hoofs, like EVPs of horses neighing and hoofs and things like that. I really do believe that animals can leave spirit behind as well. I sometimes see these and it's pretty common for me to see these low-lying shadow things out of the corner of my eye. It's like an everyday thing. I'm not gonna lie. I see even things that don't even look like shadows, but I can't even make it out. It looks like a solid something, you know. And I'm just like, oh, what's that small little thing over there? I think it doesn't look like my cat. Sometimes it'll be bigger than my cat, or like a different color, like brown, you know. And I see these low-lying like shadows all the time. I mean, every day. And I'm still trying to figure it out. I mean, are these animal spirits? Are these like elementals, like, you know, like creature-like things? I don't know. I don't have the answers for everything, guys.
Close.
Well, you're close. Yeah. I'm just going to say, to finish up this hour in this story, I think that these people should get their house exorcised to make sure that the cat leaves immediately and they can live a peaceful life with their dog.
There you go.
Great sound advice from Michael O'Neill.
Yeah.
There we go. That's what I'm here for. So, all right. Well, that does it for hour one. We are going to go to a quick commercial break. And when we come back, Miss Susan Slaughter will be joining us again. And we are going to get into Paranormal Caught on Camera, because, wow, do I want to talk about that.
Yes.
So let's take it away, Miss Elizabeth.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions, brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer, throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hey, this is Dustin Perry from Ghost Hunters, and you're listening to Dave and Mike on the Odyssey Files. It's not the best show you're ever going to listen to, but it's also probably not the worst.
I'm sorry,
Dustin.
Sorry, my mic was off. I was like, what is that?
Yeah,
okay.
It's one of the things we do.
Okay, and we're going to have you do it too. So
okay.
After the show. So basically, the way we do our promos with people is we have them kind of both promote the show and insult us at the same time.
In a nice way.
In a nice way.
Yeah, not like insult us like
don't
we're
bring
idiots.
your cat.
Yeah, that would be good. That'd be good. Actually, we have never had a cat promo. You should throw cat in there somewhere.
I will.
I like that.
Anyways, all right. So we are back. You are listening to and watching the Odyssey Files here on the Iron Range Radio Network and the Cosm Network. And our guest tonight is obviously Miss Susan Slaughter here, coming back from the first hour. She did not run after when she had the chance, so I appreciate that. You could have just hung up. There's nothing we can do about that.
In December, you know. So
you could have blamed it on the plant. You could have just said that plant totally mind screwed me. You know, the word I was going to use. I'm glad I didn't throw it out there because I just about did. Totally mind jacked me, and it was like the plant just set me over the edge. I had to leave, guys. I'm sorry. You guys are haunted.
Moving.
It is still moving. Yeah, I saw it.
So, all right. So,
couple that with the black orb flying around your head. You got all kinds of weird shit going on down there in Florida.
Orb. I killed it.
Good for you.
Nice. That's one way of getting rid of orbs.
Just crush them. Just lay waste to it. Just wham. That's it. It's dead. Black orb's gone.
Okay. I'm going to stretch for this because I've been waiting for this for a long time. All right. So you're obviously a part of Paranormal Caught on Camera.
Yes.
And I did not know that this was on the pilot episode of it. I did see it, but I think it was a rerun. And there's a video that was shown during the pilot. I don't believe you were a part of that one. You were.
I
you
was
came
in
in
it
later.
from day one.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe this is your fault. So
I'm like,
there was a video taken in Shakopee, Minnesota, which is just on the south side of the cities from where we are, Twin Cities in Minnesota.
Okay.
And the video that somebody took was at a Walmart parking lot, and it was up at the sky, and there was a circle of lights, and the person was going nuts. It was, what is that? It was the UFO, and you guys all, I don't know if you were on that specific video, but I know Brian Kano was. But everybody was like, yeah, that's an UFO. That's really cool, or whatever you guys said. But the thing about it was, and it made me laugh my ass off as I'm watching this, is there's a casino just on the other side of that city called Mystic Lake. And what they do is they have a reverse teepee of spotlights that they send into the sky in a circle. And that's what you guys were seeing. It wasn't a UFO whatsoever. So my question is, and this is what I just need to know, is how does the process go when you guys get a video? Is there any research done as to what surrounds it? Like, could this actually be fake or false or misidentification? Or is it just, here's the video, just give whatever opinion you want to give?
So first and foremost, I'm sure everybody involved is aware of exactly what it is. But I
hate buts when they know exactly what it is.
Well, I mean, I would say watch the wording a little bit of how people describe things, and you'll see, like, there's a way we have to talk about things that come in, because we're not there to debunk anything. So when, let's say we see something that's probably several lights used in a circle overhead, people, would look at that and think, if they didn't know about this casino, that, oh my God, there's like a mothership type craft hovering over. And so our job is to talk, if that's within our realm of expertise. You'll notice, so let's say, like, you just showed me this image, and I'm like, oh wow, what I see
looks weird.
No, I'm just looking at you clicking your pen. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you continually flick your pen, Dave.
Put it down.
Well, good God, you guys are touchy.
I didn't realize it was you, and I was like, I hope they don't hear that clicking sound. I thought it was my fan, with the little like thing, and I was like, oh God.
I don't see any comments from our viewers that says anything about, God damn it, Dave, stop clicking the pen.
Do you hear the clicking, Amy? Let us know. Anyways, so like, how I would talk about that is like, when you see, we talk about it as like what the type of perceived phenomena is. We're not there to discuss whether it is, and this is a big issue with a lot of the things we see. We get a lot of things from people that are not professional ufologists or paranormal investigators. So things like, orbs or lens flares can definitely be issues when we're seeing these things. But, how do you tell a person that just perceived what was the biggest spiritual experience of their life, that was just dust or an IR reflection? You know what I mean? So we're
can't you just say that though? Can it just be like, I think all you're seeing is dust?
Yeah, and that doesn't make the cut. Of course. Sorry, we sit there and we give our 2 cents as professionals, and then they, when we describe the phenomena, we are asked to describe phenomena, and you'd be like, I see a ring of 6 lights, projecting however in the night sky. I'm not saying I think it's a mothership. So there are ways to talk about it that doesn't discredit the person that took the film, because that's not our job on the series. Is more to talk about the possibilities of different types of phenomena.
I like that. Right.
Yeah.
Mike doesn't like that. I like
you
that.
want to get your hopes and dreams shattered about that orb photo? Come see me at the Para Unity Con with that picture.
See, Mike and I have had this discussion more than one time, and I have always said, and Mike totally disagrees with me. I have always said, if you get somebody who has, like you just said, right, has an experience, snaps a photo, catches something that is totally not paranormal, but because it happened exactly when they were having this perceived experience, to them, it's the most important thing in the world. So who are we to destroy that dream?
Exactly.
Right? And Mike and I have talked about that a lot. And Mike's like, just tell him it's fake, it's nothing, it's dust, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, why? Why? You know, you can look at it and intelligently know that it's dust. I know it's dust. If you showed it to 100 different investigators, 99 of us would say it's dust, right? But why do you have to be the one to tell the person that it's dust? Why can't you just let them be? Why can't you just let them experience it and hold on to that because it was something important to them? Why take that away, right? Why take it away?
So, I mean, I have to be that person every time I do events and conventions where I side with you, David, where I let them have that spiritual experience, you know? And what I do is I'm very good at being very PC about it. You know, I've learned this over the many years because people are like, Susan is a bitch, you know, like I'm tired of it. She's just like, oh God, you know, she doesn't know anything. Oh my God, so obviously a light anomaly, whatever. So, and I'm like, yeah, the light anomaly is that the IR is reflecting the other IR from that other camera from that mirror that's over there. That's called light refraction. Look it up. Anyways, so, but they don't want to hear it from me. And so what I just say, hey, next time you find yourself in that position, make sure you try this or try that, because maybe you'll learn more about it, you know, and that's all I say. That's all I do now is I just give them pointers without saying that that's not what I think it is. You know, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, cool capture, man. Next time you should try this. Well, you know what? You don't have, like, I'll tell you right now, I have a presence out there that people, you know, respond to. And I mean, I rather promote spirituality than shit on it, you know? And so I mean, I think like I was that person at one point where I was like, holy shit, like orbs all day. I was so haunted, right? You know, and it wasn't until like I learned from doing it more that my eye became more, I started noticing the environmental things that create it. And it's like a lot of the people bringing it are very novice or have never really been on a ghost hunt. You know, so I'm not going to sit there and like crush their dreams and break their heart over something that they thought was grandma coming to visit them, you know, and that's like discrediting a family member now. And so you have to be very careful about how you, I want them to still have that spiritual connection with grandma, even if that's just a lens flare, you know? So I just, it's hard. It's a fine line to walk. And I'm so good at walking that fine line.
Okay, so hold on. In my defense here, so I haven't been able to speak now here. So one, I'm not as harsh as Dave makes me out to sound. I don't go.
I imagine Michael be like, "You're a fucking idiot, man!" Grabs the phone.
Yes.
No.
Yes. You have called people an idiot hundreds of times for showing photos and showing. You have said they're an idiot, they're stupid, blah blah blah, hundreds of times.
Not to their face.
There's a difference.
There's a difference. Now, one, I don't want to take away anybody's experience. It's when I look at a photo and it's a dust orb and they say it's an orb, I don't say your entire experience is crap. I said that thing that you think is an orb is actually dust. And that's exactly how I say it. I go, I think that's just dust. Not that you're a moron for thinking that it's something else, even though I might be thinking it sometimes. But the thing about it is, shut up, Dave. So the thing about it is, for me, is there's so much, and we talked about it earlier in the show, there is so much horrible and faked evidence out there, especially on YouTube. And so here we have evidence that for sure is not good. It's not proper. It's misidentified, whatever. If we continually don't stop it there, so we don't call it out, then it continues to go on down the line as being legitimate evidence, and it's not. So if we know that it's not, how is it not our responsibility as investigators to say that it isn't? I'm not trying to shit on anybody's religious experience, spiritual experience, nothing. I'm just trying to put like truth to the evidence. And I don't see that as being, I see that that's my responsibility to do so. Because and I use this against Dave when we got into a discussion here on the show about it. Let's say that this person who's putting out this evidence, who's misidentifying it, is a director of a team or puts together a bunch of his friends. Now, all of a sudden, he's training people to think that this is actual evidence. And he's spreading that misinformation. He's spreading that horrible way of choosing evidence. And it's our fault for letting it go because we did not stop it there when we saw that it was wrong. I guess that's how I think about it. I completely see both of your points in letting people have these experiences. Mm-hmm. But as an investigator, I cannot let that go.
So the thing I would say in rebuttal to what you have to do and what I think is a big issue is that we don't have a proper, like, anybody that has investigator attached to their name has gone to some form of school and has gained a degree, except for the paranormal investigator. And that's an issue. And so I think what we need to do is now everybody can be a paranormal investigator. If that's how we treated our medical system, then we'd have a huge issue, right?
Hi, Judy. You're Dave's neurosurgeon today. I know that you just watched 2 YouTube videos on spinal surgery, and he's waiting for you in the operating room. And here's your scalpel. Have fun. Yeah.
So
I get what you're saying.
I think what we need to do is kind of cut the fat in the field by having a proper training and education in it, and people need to start getting degrees on this. But the thing is that because we don't understand or don't have tools to properly gauge this type of energy that we are interacting with, it's considered a pseudoscience. And so, everything is left up to opinions now, on what things are. And, even though we could say we understand, what dust looks like on camera, we still don't understand what energy is, and so until I feel like we have it's going to be a while before we get there, but we definitely, I also don't believe in gatekeeping, I don't want to be oh, you can't sit at my table because I have a degree and and even if you had a degree in parapsychology, for instance, that is all theory as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's not even real scientifically proven anything. We just discovered that sometimes there's electromagnetic, spikes when we experience something strange. But that is literally not even anything, it had, again, we don't have the answers for anything. So who are we to tell people, and that's another thing too. It's when I talk, I say, I think this is my opinion, right. And so I embrace other people's thinking of opinions. The fact that they're even thinking about spirituality and the fact that they're even thinking about life after death is the whole purpose of who I am, because that's my goal. And I don't go around trying to prove phenomena to anybody, because this is my spiritual path. I believe in fucking ghosts, I believe in elementals. I believe in all of that craziness. And people might be like, Susan's nuts, so whatever. I'm not trying to prove it to nobody. And I'm also not trying to disprove anything to anyone. But I do see a lot of the tactics kind of going down the toilet, and it's true. It's like, it's just weird. We're in like a hairy situation here. I feel all of us who are like genuine investigators that like took the time before the shows to like research, you know, like before Ghost Hunters, I was going to Barnes and Noble and like spending way too much money on books about the subject, you know. And even then, like, I mean, I have books written by the Warrens, you know, and I don't even agree with half of the stuff in there, but you know, I read Edgar Cayce and I'm like, that guy's a genius, you know. And so it's like you have to kind of like read around like and find where you fall as an investigator, because we're not all the same investigator. And we've also seen when you start strategizing, you know, things like in certain fields, like look at like I mean, I might bring it up now and maybe this is controversial, but I am the controversial ghost hunter. Look it up. like this girl's nuts. But you know, we see what happens now when you structure things that shouldn't be structured, like policing, you know. It's like you kind of have to sway depending on like the individual, the crime at hand, the circumstances, environmental like conditions of things. Because if you treat everybody the same, then, you know, look at the big misconception we have right now in our like law institutions, you know, and things like that. So you can't treat everyone like a number. And that's another thing with investigating. And, you know, I think that because we don't have actual like an understanding of what this form of energy is, spirit energy, like we don't know how to gauge it, so therefore it can't be scientifically proven. We're not going to have like, you know, a proper setup to, you know, teach people about any of this. You know, we could just show them how to use equipment and hope that, you know, we get the next Einstein or Tesla in the paranormal field to like discover a new form of energy, you know, and then create a device to use that. We're not even using devices that are built for investigating the paranormal. We use things used by electricians and, you know, audio technicians and things like that. We don't even have real gear to help guide us. You know, people are using Xbox, you know, like SLS cameras and shit, you know, and that's not even real proof of anything either, you know. And so all of this is mumbo jumbo, really, if you think about it. But I'll tell you, I have seen equipment. I've had personal experiences around those things. You know, first it started personal experience wise, right? And then I learned, oh, wow, equipment could help me gauge, you know, my experiences so I don't feel like it's all in my head, you know? And so that's all it's ever been for me. You know, I've been doing this because I want a personal, you know, understanding of spirits and where they are at. And I want to grow with that, you know? And so when people put me, I've been on shows like Ghost Hunters, and they're like, oh, here's a ghost hunter. And I have to be that ghost hunter that taps the Atlantic Paranormal Society defined as like a technique, which, you know, was a great way to learn how to investigate, you know. And I love debunking things, and I debunk everything all day. But then I find that, you know, I mean, with me, I could debunk everything because I feel strongly about spirit energy, you know, like I don't get my heart broken when I capture something and I'm like, whoa, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's a lens flare. Oh, it's your shadow reflected because the IR is behind you, or, you know, things like that, because I've learned how to see all that. But it's still not like scientific enough for me to be like, you know, stand on a soapbox and tell other people what's spiritual or not. You know, I just speak in my opinion, you know, and that's all I could do. People could just like take it or leave it.
All right. So what's your holy grail? What is Susan Slaughter's holy grail that is going to be the thing that you will put your finger on and say that all of the things that I've experienced, the shit that I know exists, right? And this is what I can put my finger on and say that you should believe me.
I don't tell that to anybody that they should believe me.
But somewhere down the road, you got to be a proponent for the paranormal. And what you're talking about is moving the whole field forward with education, some type of it, right? So there has to be some concept in your head if you're going to say that, right? Well, that you want to move everything forward, that you want to have some type of like everybody should be educated in some degree. Mm-hmm. So like, what would you say to, you know, you said pseudoscience. So what would you say to somebody who says that paranormal is total bullshit because science can't prove it? 100% total bullshit because science can't prove it.
You're right. Science can't prove it.
But that doesn't make it bullshit. And I have proof
That's
that can
their
dispute
opinion,
that.
you know, and that's fine. They could have their opinion. You know, I've already experienced my holy grail. I experience it every day through my practice of the craft, through, you know, the downloads that I get. You know, I experience it in forms of affirmation from the people I help spiritually, you know, the energies and what they give back to me. The trajectory of my life has been a growing and glowing experience because of my, you know, affirmations in the spiritual world, you know, and I, you know, continue to be an empathetic investigator. You know, I'm not like other investigators who I love very dearly, that are very technical, and I love them. And I think that they're very needed on teams where they're very like either skeptic until the gear proves them right. You know, that's great. And that's another type of investigator. You know, you have your psychic mediums and stuff, and you know, I understand their realm, but I don't go in on investigation psychic medium like, you know, I go in there because I like to touch the energies with my empathetic ability, and I just use the gear to, you know, kind of corroborate the things that I've experienced. That's been my spiritual path. Investigating the paranormal was never me trying to be scientific and prove anything to anyone other than myself. And so that's, you know, that's just been my personal thing as well. And I do think, though, if people are going to take the field seriously, that, yeah, we do need to have like a structured guideline. And actually, the Dark Zone network, which, you know, I produce on and one of the creators on, we are working on with all the other investigators that we've cherry picked from every single series on television. We have created a guideline that we are working on right now. We're doing kind of like a master class, you know, of proper technique. So we are trying to put out there, you know, the thing is that we have to be inclusive and allow all types of people, even like the phony ones and even like the extra creepy, crazy ones, and the ones that are like even like skeptics in under this like umbrella, which we call the Dark Zone Network, because we're like, if they're watching what we're putting out, then maybe we influence them in the right direction of how to be this type of paranormal investigator. And you know, TAPS was also one of the first teams to do that too. You know, the Atlantic Paranormal Society kind of put that out there as well. But then what we're seeing now, you know, that there's television involved and people are getting into the field because of what they see on TV. And we talk about the way people conduct investigations. And the way I feel like I have to conduct investigations now because it's boring to the viewer, is very different than how a true investigation should be conducted. It doesn't happen in 6 hours and you're not talking the whole time. If it were up to me, I would have at the minimum 3 days at a location with a full-on DVR system, recording static cams, not moving the whole time. You know, people shut up. Stop asking fucking questions on an investigation. Just let shit happen. Let it react to you being in the environment. People think this is a problem with television. People think you have to talk the whole time on investigation. I hate talking. I just want to go in there and just look, observe, hear, you know, like, because that's like where you start understanding how energy really moves. You're too busy talking and trying to, you know, get answers and like, oh, going back on your recorder and listening into real time. Don't do that. That's poor practice. And we're seeing people do that all the time. You go home with all your shit and you sit down for 3 days because you're watching it all in real time at home, in bed, getting Cheeto crumb. No, don't eat Cheetos when you're reviewing evidence. Don't eat Cheetos. Eat soft things so you could hear.
Yeah, as I say, you might miss an EVP if you're crunching on a Cheeto. Yeah, yeah.
But it's like, look, it's like, that's another thing. It's like, it takes a long time. And what I really admire about like older investigations, like from the 60s and the 70s, this is a time where we're starting to really use gear, right? I say it like I'm from the 60s. In a past, I have energy from there, right? So like back in the day, you know, they were using like recording devices, parabolic mics were a thing then still, and cameras.
Reel-to-reel tape recorders.
Yeah,
Hans Holzer used to take reel-to-reel tape recorders and lug them 80-pound bastards into exactly, and would lug them big, huge, heavy bastards into locations.
Yeah,
right.
And they will record, and it was so expensive because they would once those tapes ran out, they put in a new tape, and it would have to go over and over for hours and hours and hours and hours, and that's what it is to investigate. But somehow down the line, we've lost because we have attention spans at 48 minutes because that's what television gives us with commercials, right? Then people are like, oh my God, they talk the entire time. They're only doing that because that's what's interesting for the viewer. If we were sitting there in IR like this, like I usually am on a real investigation that has nothing to do with a con, that has nothing to do with an event, private style investigation, I'm sitting there like this the whole night waiting for something, to happen. And then you know what? Cool. That energy in the house just got used to me being non-invasive and energetically there. The next night I'll ask a couple questions, but it's not all the way in, asking interrogation mode. Everybody that's an investigator thinks there's some sort of cop in a ghost world, and they got to talk. And it's frustrating, because then in order for me to do what I love to do, I get financed by production companies or things like that to do it on the levels I like to do it at the locations I'd love to do it. And so I have to cater to that a little bit, and it's, again, walking a fine line all the time. So it's a thing. But, right now I can't really talk about, I do consult on other series that I'm not physically on. I just talk to producers on how I think things should work. I'm doing that right now for a Netflix series that's coming out, and they're handling things a lot differently, which is really cool. And I'm glad to be a part of that, because I don't have to be on camera or investigating a location to have an influence on what could be a new style of paranormal investigations, right? So I do things behind the scenes too, hoping that, like Michael was saying, don't you feel like you need to do something to change the genre and how it's being represented? Yes, I do. And sometimes I feel like as a blonde girl in her 30s, sometimes people expect me to be a certain way on camera as this, So sometimes I have to go behind the scenes and finagle things, on a Netflix series to kind of get my point across, even though you don't see me. So, and then there's things like that too. The great thing about what I'm doing on the Dark Zone is that as well, where I get to be my authentic self and, incorporate metaphysical belief system into paranormal phenomena, and work with energies and talk about witchcraft and ghosts, through the Dark Zone. And we're going to do that. We're working on that masterclass because that's another opportunity I have to set the record straight, to people, to be a good influence in the community, and we have all sorts of people talking about it. I mean, all the Dark Zone people, plus we have other historians. We have Brandon Alvis talking about it as well. And Brandon and Mustafa from Ghost Hunters are also, they have Formula of a Haunting book that they're about to drop if it hasn't already come out yet. That is also a great representation, of how to conduct a proper investigation, and they're a little bit more technical about it. And all of that's good. I think, again, it's just a pseudoscience still, and it's hard. I'm the wrong person to talk to. You should talk with Brandon Alvis about getting this whole situation straight with the paranormal community and getting them more pro. I'm just I'm easy breezy over here. Just be spiritual. Just don't become one of these ghosts. What can you do in your life to not be a negative aspect haunt that stays around in a wall forever?
So I just want to start out because I do have a question, but I do want to interject one thing, and that is, I would hope that any show that you are ever on, that they would have you as you are right now. Like they wouldn't have you act in any other way than what you are doing right now, because anything else than this is a detriment to the field.
Yeah.
I've loved talking to you so far in this interview. I wish we could go 3 hours because there's so much more to talk about. But so here, getting to my question now. I have actually had investigators, not me, but I've had investigators asked by clients if they are going to be in and out in 45 minutes because that's what they saw on TV. So my question is, and this is just in general, how much damage or not damage do you think these television shows that feature all different styles and aspects, and like you said, nothing but EVP sessions, how much damage do you think that they are doing to what like real investigators are trying to get across?
I mean, I would say it's not, I say it's misleading. I wouldn't, I see, I'm an optimist. Okay. So maybe I see it as this, like, maybe I see it like this. I'm like, look, maybe these are inspiring young people to become more spiritual and get involved in the field. You know, like people back in the day thought you could bleed out patients and the bad blood would leave and then they would get better, and they put leeches all over people and stuff like that. And that was considered medicine, right?
Yes, it was.
And so it took somebody to come in and be like, hey, I have a better way of doing something. And so when we have shows like this exposing new generations to this, maybe they get involved in a sense that's not superficial. Maybe they become the next great thing in the field, right? And so I find it, you know, this is good. It's exposure so that we get those people, you know, to take the field to the next level, to be that person that's like, hey, like I've discovered, you know, we could use this tool in the field, you know, or now we get someone that like is into spirituality, but also gets a degree in like, you know, some sort of like chemistry or like physics or something, and that can, you know, bring that into the paranormal field, you know? So I think it's a good thing. Of course, you're going to have a lot of hacks, but it's like everything has better versions and shitty versions, you know? That's in film, that's in music, that's literally in every aspect of life, including the paranormal. You know, so I think that, I mean, I started watching Ghost Hunters, you know, I joined a team in Miami where I was born and raised because I was like, damn, I want to do what they're doing. I want to learn for myself. And so I joined a team, and then I did the groundwork. I did the legwork. I did the evidence review, all of that, like in the field in real time, you know? And so that led me down a path, you know, and it changed who I am today. You know, I mean, I'll forever thank them, you know, Ghost Hunters, that whole franchise. And which is why, like, by the way, we were talking about Steve Gonzalez, like, he's one of my best friends because he vouched for me. He was the one that picked me on Ghost Hunters Academy and was like, this girl is going to be the next investigator that represents Ghost Hunters. And we've been friends ever since then. Anytime I need anything, you know, I visit him as a friend, you know, we talk. He's a cool dude that still is my mentor today, you know, and we do talk, like we're talking about this, the frustrations of being on television, a paranormal investigator, and the boxes we get put in sometimes. But, you know, we do get the opportunities more so than anybody else now because we're able to get access to locations because of the, you know, who we are and things like that. And eventually I've made myself a free agent, where the reason why I do series like Paranormal Caught on Camera is because I get the opportunity to not only talk about ghosts, I get to talk about like aliens and ancient aliens and kind of, you know, talk about cryptids. And then I have an opinion on something else that's not so much ghosts. I'm not the ghost girl all the time. You know, I actually have opinions on other things. And, you know, being a paranormal investigator, I think a lot like ufologists think, you know, and a lot like cryptozoologists thinks. And like, you know, I like being in that, you know, seat talking about all those different things. It's really exciting. Trust me, when we get like the list of all the things we talk about, I'm like, oh, ghost stuff, ghost stuff, ghost stuff, ghost stuff. UFO, yes, you know, and I'm like, let me look at this UFO thing. And you know why I get excited? Because maybe I'm not a ufologist. And just like the people we were talking shit about earlier, I'm looking at some things like triangles in the skies and things like that. And I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. What on earth is that? And I talk, you know, from like an excited, like newborn type thing, you know, where then you talk, a ufologist is like, you know, just like I am with ghosts now, because I'm so jaded in that arena. Like everything I could see, I could come and debunk everything now. I could debunk everything. And I'm trying not to be a salty investigator. So I try to, you know, still enjoy what I do. You know, I think that's kind of comes with the territory, no matter what you do. You know, a nurse in a hospital feels the same way, you know?
That's an interesting comment that I didn't really think I'd ever hear you say, that you can debunk everything. So saying that you can debunk everything kind of leans me towards the feeling that the paranormal doesn't exist, that there's some sort of rational explanation for everything that's out there.
Yeah, I tell myself,
Right?
I have a split mind sometimes. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm romanticizing spirituality to a point, and maybe I'm only seeing things through rose-colored lenses when I feel like I have spirit guides and angels and, you know, the ability to communicate with elementals and animals, right? So I'm like, oh, you know, like you're regular Snow White, Susan, and Spirit La La Land, right? And it's like, maybe I am living in like, you know, sometimes I think it's healthy to kind of burst your own bubble sometimes, you know, to just be like, reel it in a little bit, Susan, be a little bit of a realist now. Like, what's the true possibility of like this just being, maybe you did this yourself through your everyday actions, and, you know, this has nothing to do with spirit guides, you know, things like that. Or this, you know, maybe ghosts aren't real and we just don't understand basic energy because we're like a baby ass species, you know, like of humanoids living on this planet. You know, we're like learning every day. I mean, there's a point where one time where we're like, wow, the earth is flat. You know, we didn't know about planets. We didn't know like what an eclipse was. People were sacrificing people thinking like evil gods were coming because the moon turned red, and they didn't understand the shadow and alignment with other things, you know. And now we know all this stuff, and it's like the same with medicine, like I mentioned earlier. It's like, maybe I don't know shit. So sometimes it's good to think that.
Well, I guess then my next question is, what do you think we need to do? What do we think we need to study? What do you think we need to invent in order to further our understanding of energy?
I think we need to study. I mean, first of all, we need to be able to actively study things outside of our solar system, and we've only just gotten to Mars. So that's going to be a long time coming. We haven't even seen what the dark side of our moon looks like. We've only seen one face of our moon ever. What's on the other side of that moon? What does it even look like? What even lives there?
Well, the Decepticons are there.
That's where the Decepticons live, right? They're not going to come until, you know, like, so, you know, things like that. We're understanding, we're starting to discover things like, you know, like how we're understanding the whole energy appliance to atoms now, and like, and now we could observe an atom because we built this mega thing, you know, to understand how an atom works. You know, where is that located? I forgot. It was like some, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not
the Hadron. Are you talking about the Hadron Collider?
Is that where, yeah, that big thing
where they split an atom?
Yeah, and they're understanding to deconstruct something like that.
Right.
You know, and they're like, whoa, like, what about the theory that everything around us is, you know, like this, the only reason why this is solid and I could hold it is because it's like vibrating at a different frequency than me. And that's why we don't melt or mesh. You know, like we look at two liquids like oil and water, and they don't like intermingle. Even if you were to shake the shit out of it, it just turns into little plasma bubbles and they're still separated. You can't even bring two liquids together. You know, how do we understand that, how spirit moves between matter? Like where they see, you know, apparitions walk through walls. Like, how do we explain that? You know, so we don't even understand the literal matter that's around us at all times. You know, so it's things like that where I feel like we need to start scratching the surface of. time travel, you know, I think is another story to talk about another time. Never mind.
Well, we only have 12 minutes, so could we fit in time travel into that? Probably not.
Probably not.
Definitely not. Trust me. You know how long I talk on paranormal caught on camera? Look, if there are things that I think that I could explain away, I do my due diligence and say it. Whether or not it comes out on the series or not is up to the editors and how they want to portray the story. But I always speak my truth on that show. And what I do enjoy seeing is when, you know, they take spiritual aspects when I start talking about things like chakras and meditation and transmuting energy and transference of energy and things like that that don't really get talked about in the field. I get to talk about, and it ends up in people's living rooms sometimes. And that's my job. And that's where I get happy with Paranormal Caught on Camera, you know, because they actually allow me to talk about things that I couldn't talk about in a conventional team, you know, because we're too focused on like gathering data and using gear and being, you know, which I enjoy, don't get me wrong, but I've been finding that I'm kind of growing out of that kind of arena and getting more into like a metaphysical arena. And Paranormal Caught on Camera allows me to do that. So I'm very grateful for that.
So, kind of changing topics here for a minute. I saw, while I was looking up stuff for tonight's interview, I saw an interview, like a 3-minute clip, where Dave Schrader was talking to you about an experience that you had where kind of what I would refer to, I think it was even titled this, was a black-eyed girl. Yeah, black-eyed child that showed up in your bed. Mm-hmm. My question isn't about the black-eyed kids per se, unless you want to go and if you want to talk about that, that's fine, because we have talked about black-eyed kids before. Mm-hmm. But my question is, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but a lot of these young female spirits have this long black hair. And so I'm curious what your analysis of the concept of this long black hair is. Like, why is everybody seeing the same thing? We're all different individuals, assuming that everybody's vibrational energy has its own tune, right? That we're not just copycatting one another, that there's not only 10 layers to pick from. Mm-hmm. Why are a lot of these experiences seeing a young female with this long black hair like that?
I think that, well, my experience that I had was the only entity I've ever seen that looks like that. And I would say it was dark hair. I think it also has to do a lot with like the lighting, or maybe how we're capturing it on camera. I mean, the way things look in IR, even us, if you look at yourself in IR, your black shirt looks white.
Right.
You know, it could be a reflection on light. It could be because I believe entities can be light beings. Maybe the way that our eyes perceive that spectrum of light is discolored. And so we're seeing everything in like this kind of color scheme, you know, kind of like an infrared camera does, you know, and how that lens portrays light, you know, and I think, you know, we could only see within a certain spectrum that goes a little bit into ultraviolet and a little bit into infrared, and beyond that, we don't understand. Right. We can't see it, you know? Right. So maybe this is like a way that apparitions can make themselves seen to us, but it comes off in like this kind of color scheme. I mean, that's how I interpret it, because when I've seen energies, they're not as colored as I see you or me, or, you know, like I always find that they're a little bit like desaturated, or some things stand out more. Like I remember seeing an apparition that was redheaded, and the entire apparition, I mean, it wasn't a whole apparition. It was kind of like a half and a shoulder like this, like just kind of like a portion. And it was a man, and he had like this super, super curly, but like red hair. But then the rest of him was desaturated, and I couldn't really tell like what color. He was like not even sepia, like less than that, you know, it was weird. But the thing that I noticed was this fiery hair. And it's like, why am I noticing those colors, you know, and things like that? It's hard to say. Like, I think because energy comes within a certain light spectrum, our eyes could convey certain colors, especially when we're dealing with spirit energy. Like maybe that's a type of energy we don't understand. It comes from like another dimension or realm where color schemes and things like that are all different. Like I have no idea, you know. But let's also blame movies. You know, why not? You know, pop culture, you know, the
Right.
way that they portray things, you know, and people might be projecting and seeing things what they want to see. You know,
So going back to like The Ring, because that's what I always think of when you get the
Yeah.
young female with the black hair in front of her face. I go back to The Ring, right? I mean, because that when The Ring came out, it was kind of like it had a creepy vibe to it, and it
Mhm.
had this creepy image, right? I mean, it was a disturbing image when it first came out. Now it's been overplayed, but at the time, and I say this, you know, you have to take everything in perspective and put it where it was. Blair Witch Project, when it came out, right then and there at that spot, was a phenomenal movie. Right?
Mhm.
It was great for the way it was shot, for the way it portrayed horror, for the way it portrayed fear. It was a great movie. Today, no. I mean, with all the green screening and all the other crap you could do and all the special effects you could do with CGI, it's nothing compared to that now. But if you put it into perspective of when it was there, it was great. Right?
Mhm.
So I mean, are you thinking then that something like The Ring could possibly have the influence kind of nationwide or worldwide for people who have seen it, that if they see an entity like that, that's how they visualize it, that's how their mind conceptually sees
Just
the
going back
entity?
to that study that Brandon Alves did with Dr. Clore, you know, you feed this idea and then you can mentally project it outward. You know, people talk about creepypastas like Slender Man or whatever.
Right.
And like enough people read about the Slender Man, especially like young malleable minds that get into that, you know, preteens, teenagers that start thinking about the Slender Man, they start manifesting it within themselves and their environment, you know, and so they could eventually conjure up and create this type of entity, you know, just based off of sheer amounts of people thinking about. Imagine that, like if stress of like a family can cause poltergeist activity within a house, what about the 3 million views, 3 million 14-year-olds watching, you know, the Slender Man creepypastas, you know? They're like, I think that's a collective right there that creates these types of things into reality and shifts a haunt in a location, you know, things like that. We
So you're
think
kind of
that
getting into global consciousness.
I
Because
would
I mean, global
100%
consciousness is kind of like, yeah, it's kind of on exactly what you're talking about. CE5, right? The whole concept of sending out love to the aliens. If hundreds of millions of people can do that, is that going to have a response that's going to bring down 0 point energy or
I
bring
agree with
down,
that.
right? Or bring down an understanding of love that we don't understand right now as human beings because we don't have that ability. But they're
Yeah,
going to
and I'm one of
introduce it
those
to us.
people that sit down and meditate, you know, that date and time at this thing
Right.
with thousands of other people remotely. And I hope that one day we get there, you know, like absolutely. So I do believe in like a universal consciousness. And I also believe that, you know, could translate into ghosts and spirits as well. And also just like our planet Earth. I mean, like I said, the macro and microcosms are so like real to me. The detail of it is really could be overwhelming sometimes, which is why I lean on meditation and why now I like lean more into being just a spiritual metaphysical person on a ghost hunt. And also I hate that term, ghost hunt. It's paranormal investigation.
Yeah,
Like,
so do we.
let's
We hate the term
stop
ghost
that
hunt too.
term.
So yeah.
So that's another thing. I try not to talk about things as hunting for ghosts because that's not what we're doing.
No, we're not. There's
so
no
yeah.
camouflage going on, no high-powered rifles, right? We're not out deer hunting for
not.
human beings, right?
Exactly. I'm not trying
Right.
to bring home no hide.
No.
Like, no ghosts.
Right. No. We're just there to learn and experience.
Exactly. Gather data.
So with the few minutes that we have left, what do you have coming up, you know, show wise? You know, you mentioned obviously the Dark Zone. You know, what all is in store in your future besides the Para Unity convention in Vegas?
Well, coming up this Halloween with the Dark Zone, I'll be investigating with Brandon Alves, Mustafa Gattalori. I think I said that right. Kristen Lumen, myself, and other people, other teams are coming out. We have Rise Up Paranormal coming out. We have the actual Perrin family coming to the home If you're familiar with the Conjuring movies, which most people in the field are, that story, the actual family is going to be there and investigate with us, which I am very much looking forward to, because if anybody knows anything about Andrea Perrin in general, her and I are very like this when it comes to spirituality. Not this, we're like this. And so
I was going to say, what is this? Is this like the polite version of butting heads? Because usually it's like this. Yeah.
No. Her and I are like on the same page when it comes to spirituality. And so I'm very much looking forward to investigating with her and her family, because this experience in that home shaped her whole life forever. Now she's written books about it. She's incredibly sensitive. She has abilities. I think all of those things have to do with the reason why there was activity in that house in the first place, like her and all her sisters, So I'm excited to be there with the family and investigating with with them at the Conjuring home, the farmhouse. I'm going to be at the Para-Unity convention in December with you guys in Las Vegas. And I'm shooting season 5 of Paranormal Caught on Camera right now. And I have a new podcast, like live stream thing I do on Spoon. So if you want to download the Spoon app, every Tuesday night, I get to talk about all the metaphysical things and spiritual things. I talk about witchcraft, the occult. I do a tarot reading the first Tuesday of every month. And so I've got a lot of little irons in the fire, all things where I could be myself authentically, how things get packaged for television sometimes. You'll see sometimes they mostly use my comments for Paranormal Caught on Camera on the ghost stuff sometimes, but mostly on aliens and witchcraft, because that's where I get really excited these days, So I'm very happy I get to talk about those things on that series. So that's what I've been up to. And if you guys want to follow me, I'm like Susan the Dragon Witch on Instagram, and you follow me, Susan Slaughter, on Spoon, so you could listen to my podcast for free. It's not just listening, you get to interact, you get to, I see your comments, I answer your questions. We talk about all sorts of things regarding the occult, witchcraft, paranormal. So that's what I'm up to, you guys. Also, I just shot a movie with Mike Mendez, so I am an actor too. I only act if I have a character name. If I'm Susan Slaughter, you're getting me authentically. So that's one thing I just have to put out there. If I'm Dahlia and Sleigh Bells, that's a character that acts, and so again, that's another thing people get confused with me by, because they're like, oh my God. And I was like, yeah, I was a theater student before I was a paranormal investigator. So a lot of people didn't really know that.
I did.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it wasn't something we were going to talk about on tonight's show, but it shows up. If all you have to do is type in Susan Slaughter, and the only thing that I saw that I was like, I bet that's not true, is that you were like the lead trumpet player in a 1969 orchestral movement that shows up under your feed. And I'm like, I don't think she's as old as I am, and that she'd be older than me. I don't think she's not older than I am. So I think that's a weird
Google
thing.
Slot. Me and Susan are fighting that Google slot. She's still making fire ass trumpet music that's got her up there. Like, she's got quite the following too.
I saw that.
Look very different and have very different following.
I saw that too. Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Susan, for coming on. Like I said, this has been a great treat. Can't wait to have you back. In fact, I think I already know what we'll do with you next time. This is going to be great. It's going to be great. You're going to love it.
Okay, sounds good.
But that does it for us this week. Tune in next week, obviously, for our 200th episode.
What?
Next week.
Congratulations.
Where we are going to have a 2-hour roundtable conversation with Dustin Perry and
Barry
Fitzgerald.
Barry Fitzgerald, I love that. He's also one of my biggest teachers ever, by the way. That guy taught me the majority of what I do today in the field as an investigator is because Barry Fitzgerald taught me. I've investigated with him all over the world for like 3 years straight. He is one of my biggest inspirations in the field. Just throwing that out there. If only he didn't live in Ireland.
He's going to be up in the middle of the night. Like he's going to be up from like 2 to 4 a.m. to be live with us for our 200th episode.
And Dustin Perry comes on all of our Dark Zone events. You know, he hasn't been there physically, but he always comes in and talks with us and shares knowledge and information. We love him at the Dark Zone. He's also another Ghost Hunters alumni, so we're all in the same boat.
Yep.
So yeah,
Dustin,
I'm very happy to hear that you are talking to the right ones.
Exactly. We only talk about the right ones. But all right. Thank you all for watching and listening. We'll see you all next week. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. We want to see you back here.
I'm not going to wave.